Hi there, Miss Nicole here. Today we're going to be reading Equality's Call, the story of voting rights in America. Written by Deborah Diesen, illustrated by Magdalena Mora. In 1776, the founders of the United States of America declared that consent of the governed would be a key component of our country. The founders didn't always agree on everything, but they did all believe that the power of our government should come from the will of the people, and that citizens would express their choices by voting in elections. But at that time, only some people were allowed to vote. Citizenship, the legal status of being a member of a country, and the right to vote, sometimes called the franchise, political franchise, or suffrage, were not available to all. As our nation grew, our understanding of democracy and rights grew too. Many people stood up and spoke up about abolition, the end of slavery, about citizenship, about enfranchisement, and about civil rights, equal opportunity for all. They also worked to end voter suppression, the practice of discouraging or preventing people from voting. They heard equality's call. Our founders declared when the country began that consent of the governed was part of the plan. Through voting, elections, and representation, the voice of the people would strengthen our nation. In fact, though, for years, this great founding ideal was extended to some and for others not real. But we heard in the distance equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. The state set the rules about who got to vote, and your gender, your race, and your wealth were of note. White men with property went to the polls, but the rest of the people were left off the rolls. The dream of democracy wasn't yet true. There were changes to make, there was work still to do. But we heard growing clearer equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. The rules about wealth were the first thing to go. As more were enfranchised, their voices could grow. And a small group of voices were raising the fact that enslavement was wrong, an unspeakable act. Good people stood up for the truth that they knew. Abolition and suffrage were long overdue. We heard ever louder equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. There was a war in our nation and slavery ended. Amendments were added, the franchise extended. Now more men could vote, at least so the law said, yet denial through taxes and tests were widespread, and the voices of women were mostly omitted. In only some states was their voting permitted. But nothing could muffle equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. Suffragists didn't give up on the fight, and the 19th Amendment gave women the right. But voters of color still met with oppression. Their voting was hindered by brutal suppression. So we passed legislation to make voting fair, to extend and protect voters' rights everywhere. We heard it, we felt it, equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. The journey's not over, the work hasn't ended. Democracy's dream must be constantly tended. But where we are now is a debt that we owe to the work of more people than ever we'll know. And each time we vote, we acknowledge that past. We honor our rights to ensure they will last. For to vote is to answer equality's call. And each time we vote, we vote with them all. That was Equality's Call, the story of voting rights in America, written by Deborah Diesen, illustrated by Magdalena Mora.